Okay, so agents of pollination. So already we know what is pollination. It is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma, either of the same plant or a different plant. Right? So there are three types according to this. That is the autogamy, nichtogamy, and xenogamy. Now, obviously, if the pollen grains has to get transferred, there should be some kind of agents for it, right? So let's see what are the agents which are responsible for the same. So the first agent that we are going to see is, like, I'll just divide it into two parts. One is the abiotic, and another one is the biotic. Okay, so abiotic means what? Non-living, and biotic means obviously living, right? So there are different types under the abiotic and biotic. Now, abiotic means basically it will be the wind and water, whereas the biotic means animals. Now, what kind of animals? Now, either they may be the insects, okay, or the butterflies or whatever, birds, correct? All this stuff. These are the biotic ones. So let's see one by one what are the characteristics required for the flower in order for any of the agent to start the pollination. So the first one we have is the wind. So wind, okay, so wind, if the pollination is taking place by this agent wind, then it is called as the anemophily. This is the term used whenever the pollination takes place through wind. So obviously it's a what do you say? It's an abiotic agent. So now we are going to see certain characteristics that a flower will require in order to pollinate via the wind. Okay. So the first thing which that particular what do you say? That particular this should have, the flower should have. Okay, so usually whatever the wind pollinated flowers are there, they will be having single ovule in each ovary. Now let me clear over here. Ovule is the seed and ovary is the fruit. Fine. So what happens over here is, when if a plant or a flower has to get pollinated via the wind, then single ovule in each ovary it should have. Okay, plus whatever the flowers, the large number of flowers are there, that is the numerous flowers, they are packed into the format of inflorescence. Inflorescence pattern will be there. Okay, so in where the pollen grains are usually present is in the male gametophyte, right? The anther, stigma, whatever it is. So the wind, whenever it's blowing, it should transfer that particular pollen grains out from that flower to the another flower. So in order for this to happen, whatever the flowers are there, they should have certain characteristics. Like for example, these kind of flowers, it should produce what? Plenty of pollens. Okay, so produce plenty of pollens. Second is what? See, they have to get carried away by wind, right? So they should be what? Light and non-sticky. Plus, as I told you, pollen grains are present in the male gametophyte called as the stamens. So it should be like easily exposed to the wind. Okay, so you can write it as well exposed stamen, right? Plus, whatever pollens are there in that, wherever it is present or wherever it is going to go, it should have a large feathery stigma. Now, what is the use of this large and feathery stigma? To trap that particular pollen grains into it. So only if these characteristics are there, then only effective pollination by the wind will take place. Second one is the water. So if it's taking place through water, it is termed as hydrophily. Hydro means water. So this is quite rare because only where water is available, there only you will find this particular thing. So here, if you see any lower plants where where it is easily accessible to the water, then what happens is the male gamete can easily get transported through the water and go to the female and get fertilized. Okay, so usually here, whatever the pollen grains are there, means water pollinated if it has to happen, then they should have a mucilaginous covering. Why this mucilaginous covering is important? So that it can protect it from being wet. Because if it becomes wet, then obviously what is going to happen? It will not, what is it, carry out that particular fertilization. So this is very important. Okay, then whatever the female flowers are there, that should also reach to the water. Okay, then only it will float through the water. So like that, certain things are there. But you cannot even consider all the aquatic plants under this. Okay, because not all the aquatic plants are pollinated by this hydrophily method. Because in most of the cases, what happens is if that flower, okay, which actually grows in the water body, if the part is above the water level, okay, means above the water, then what will happen? There are chances that the whatever the pollination is there, it may take place through entomophily or anemophily also. Okay, that is through bats, birds, animals, wind, whatever it is. Okay, so it is not necessary that whatever the flowers is considered over here, it should be like colorful, okay, or it should produce, so not necessary, should produce what? Nectar. Okay, so this thing is not at all necessary. Okay, so that is what exceptional case, only in case of what? The what do you say, water pollination type. Okay, so here whatever the pollen grains are there, they are usually long and ribbon like. Okay, so these are some of the points for the same. Then the sorry. Then the next one is by what? Animals. Okay, so depending upon which animals are going to pollinate that particular, what do you say, flower, on that basis, the types of pollination are termed. Okay, so so in biotic agents, you have certain animals such as bees, okay, butterflies, then any type of insects like flies and all those stuff, okay, birds, right? Then even you can take rodents and reptiles as well. So by the insects, if the pollination is taking place, then we say it is called as what? Entomophily. Basically, this is done by bees. And if it's like birds, we say it as ornithophily. So depending upon which type of or category of animals are going to do that, the terms vary. Fine. But the important thing that you have to know is if a flower has to get pollinated by the insects, there should be certain characteristics for that flower. Like, for example, the insects or birds, whatever it is that they should be attracted to the flower. So, for the attraction purpose, some things should be present in them. Like, for example, the flower should be large, colorful, should produce fragrant, plus it should have nectar, rich in nectar it should be, and pollen grains. Then what will happen is the insects, birds, whatever it is that they will get attracted. Second, the small flowers, it will form what? Inflorescence. So because of that, easily, whatever the insects or birds are there, they can easily see that particular flower. If that particular flowers are being pollinated by flies and beetles, then it is very necessary that some kind of fragrance they should produce. And generally, when the insects sit on that particular stigma, okay, that pollen grain should get attached to the body of that particular insect, bird, or whatever it is, so that when it will go and sit into the next plant, it will release it over there. So for this purpose, what is important is whatever the pollen grains are there, they should be sticky. Should be sticky. Okay, the main reason for the stickiness it should be is because it should stick to the body of that particular animal, right? So these are all about what? Certain types of pollination and how it is done and what it is taught. Okay, so the characteristics over here is very important. Fine. Now let's see the next part. Okay, like after the pollination is done, now already we know about the embryo sac, its structure and all those stuff. Okay, now here there is one more thing which is called as what? Outbreeding devices. Outbreeding devices. Now, what are those outbreeding devices? See, there are certain hermaphrodite flowers. Now, hermaphrodite flowers means what? Both male and female flower will be present in that particular thing. Okay, that both the thing means the male gametophyte, female gametophyte, both will be present in that. So, whatever the hermaphrodite flowers are, they are capable of undergoing self-pollination instead of cross-pollination. Okay, but what happens is whenever a self-pollination takes place repeatedly, whatever the what do you say intensity or the capacity, or you can say the results which we get, it will decrease. Okay, so it will enter into a stage which is called as what? Inbreeding depression. Okay, so inbreeding depression means what? If a continued self-pollination is taking place, then it leads to the inbreeding depression, right? So to avoid this depression in plants, okay, we have something called as what? Cross-pollination. Cross-pollination. Now in the cell, cross-pollination means whatever agents we have seen, that is all about the cross-pollination, right? So there are some devices which you can use in plants for the same. So let's see one by one what are the devices. Okay. So the first one is avoiding synchronization. Avoiding synchronization. Now, what is this avoiding synchronization? Avoiding synchronization means whatever pollens are there, it is released before the stigma becomes receptive. Okay, so before that particular stigma becomes receptive, means capable of taking that pollen grains, it should release the pollens. Then it is called as avoiding synchronization. So synchronization means, you know, right? Balancely it will go, but it should not happen like that if you want to avoid the inbreeding depression. So here the pollens are released before stigma becomes receptive. Either this can happen, first scenario, or you can do it opposite side also. That is, the stigma becomes receptive before the release of the pollen. Anyhow, you can write it. Second one is what? Whatever the position of anther and stigma is there, that should differ. So, arrangement of anther and stigma at different positions. Okay. Third one is the self incompatibility. So for the self incompatibility, you have to use the method of what do you say, genetic mechanism. So it's just that self pollination has been prevented by somehow. Okay, like for example, by inhibiting the fertilization or germination of pollen grains. Okay, or making that particular female grow bigger in height than the male. So all those stuff. Okay, so that is all about what? The self-incompatibility. And the fourth one is the production of unisexual flowers. Unisexual flowers means only one, either male or female will be present in that particular flower, not both. Okay, so if these things are taken care, the depression in plants can be avoided, which may happen due to the self-pollination, and you can proceed with the cross-pollination. So, in this, one important thing comes was the how does this male gametophyte and female gametes interact together, right? So that particular thing is called as what? Pollen pistil interaction. How does, now pollen is a male gamete, pistil is the carpel, that is the female gametophyte, okay, from which whatever the pollen grains are, that is going to go and fertilize the ovary, right? So what is this pollen pistil interaction? How does it occur? So that's what we are going to see now. See, now what happens over here is, this is a process basically where the pistil, which is the male gametophyte, is going to recognize whether that pollen grains is suitable for me, whether it is suitable to enter inside me. If it enters inside me, will it fertilize the egg? So that thing, compatible or incompatible, that particular pistil is going to recognize. Okay, so the first process over here is what? The process in which pistil recognizes whether the pollen grains are compatible or incompatible through the what do you say, chemical compounds produced by them. Produced by them. So by, like, in the common sense only we can know if that pistil is like accepts that particular compatible pollens, pollination events are going to occur. Means the rest, whatever the fertilization, everything is going to occur. But if it rejects, obviously what is going to happen? It will prevent that particular pollen germination and pollen growth too. That's it. Fine. So what happens is, whenever the pollen grains, when they germinate on the stigma, at that time, they are going to produce this pollen tube. Pollen tube. And the production of the pollen tube will take place through what? What do you say? A germ pore. Through one of the germ pore. So what happens is, when the contents of the pollen grains are ready, that is the two male gametes which are present inside the pollen grains, when they are ready to go, they will go inside this pollen tube. Okay. So pollen grains enter through the tube and reaches, what do you say, the ovary. Okay, so what in plants, whenever the pollen grains are shedded, okay, they are shedded in two cell stage that I have taught you earlier, that is vegetative and generative, right? So whatever the generative cell is there, that is going to divide into two male gametes. Okay, so shedding of pollens, it's a two-celled condition. Okay, so that is what? It will have a vegetative cell and a generative cell, where the generative cell will further divide into two male gametes. And then it will enter into the pollen tube. When it enters into the pollen tube, and whatever the conditions over here, like in the plants, when they shed the pollens, entering is three male, this one, and whatever the next cell stage is, the three-celled condition. So from the beginning itself, the pollen tubes are going to carry those two male gametes. So from the pollen tube, when it reaches the ovary, through where the micropylar end, then ovule. Right? So we already know that there was a hand-like structure down in the micropylar end. So that is nothing but the filiform apparatus. So filiform apparatus is going to guide that particular pollen tube where it has to go and from where that particular, the male gametes are going to enter inside. Okay, so this is all how a pollen pistil interaction take place on the basis of the incompatible test. Artificial hybridization. See, hybridization is generally the combination of two characteristics. So that's what we call it as hybrids, right? So what is this artificial hybridization is? This is mainly a method which is used to improve the crop yield. So it's very important that whenever you're carrying any hybridization by this method, whatever the pollen grains are there, you should choose them wisely and you should choose the right ones. So it'll go and attach to the stigma. Okay, and whatever the unwanted pollen grains are there, they will just be rejected. Okay, so that is very important. So in order for this particular, artificial hybridization to occur very nicely, there should be what certain stages. Okay, there are certain stages for the same, for this artificial hybridization to occur. So let's see what are the stages one by one. Okay, so now we know one thing, that artificial hybridization just improves whatever the yield of, means crop improvement it will do, means it will give a better pollen grains for the pollination purpose. So there are basic 4 steps which you can consider over here. Okay, one is called as the emasculation, bagging, pollination, and rebagging. Right? Now, what are these terms? First one is the emasculation. Emasculation means whatever anthers are there, they are removed from a bisexual flower. So bisexual flower means what? Both male and female gamete will be present. So the anthers are removed from a bisexual flower bud of the female parent before that anther busts to give what? Pollen grains. So this is called as what? Emasculation. Okay, so what is emasculation? Removal of anther from the bisexual flower bud of female parent before anther dehisces. Means before the anther releases or matures the pollen grains, emasculation process should be done. Then you have the bagging process. So bagging process means whatever emasculated flowers are there, means from which the anthers have been removed, they are being covered. Are covered. Okay, with a bag, so that rest of the unwanted pollen grains will not go and attach to that particular emasculated flowers. Then comes the pollination. So in pollination, you know the process already. So the stigma will attain the receptivity and it will receive that particular pollen grains. Okay, so stigma becomes receptive and the pollen grains are dusted on the stigma. And lastly, after the dusting is done, again, we have to avoid that unwanted pollen grains. So rebagging is done. So rebagging means you have to again cover that particular flowers and then it's allowed to develop into what? The fruits. So if the flowers are unisexual, there is no need of the emasculation process, but you can go for the other 3 steps. But if they are a bisexual flower, then this will help in producing what? A good quality fruit or a good pollination and fertilization process.